Hi, everyone, and welcome along to the Ergonomically Speaking podcast, the podcast that aims to help you reduce and even eliminate work related discomfort. I am your host, Neve Pentney of Boyne Ergonomics. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope that you're able to take away some useful practical advice from this podcast to help you reduce your own risk of discomfort at the workplace or help manage the risks among the people that you might be responsible for. So now that we know why we're here, let's get started. Hello, and welcome along to another episode of the Ergonomically Speaking podcast with myself, Neve Pentney of Boyne Ergonomics. In this episode, I am going to take you through 6 common myths around the area of ergonomics, and we'll break it down and give you the reality. Ergonomics itself can have a bit of a reputation being overly technical, expensive, or something that you really only need if you've had an injury or if you're in like a safety critical role. But in reality, ergonomics is for everyone. So we're going to keep the focus on desk-based workers. So if you are a desk-based worker or a gamer or a hobbyist, if you just happen to spend a lot of time at a computer, having an understanding of ergonomics and what it can do for you can save you from aches, pains, and worse long-term health issues. So in this episode, like I said, I'm going to have a look at 6 of the most common myths, and we'll break it down and try and uncover the truth a little bit. So myth number 1 is that ergonomics is just about expensive chairs and gadgets. Well, in reality, ergonomics is less about the fancy chairs and the fancy gadgets. And it's more about setting up your workspace to work with you and what you do, instead of you trying to fit yourself to the workplace. And with that in mind, small adjustments can make a massive world of difference to how you feel. And they don't all have to be expensive. So, for example, if your monitor is too low and it can't be adjusted, that doesn't mean you have to go buy a monitor stand. That doesn't mean you have to go and buy a monitor arm. You can adapt that with some books or some boxes. You can always make little or if you find your chair just isn't supporting you right in the lower back and you can't or don't want to change your chair, well, then that's okay. We could use some extra cushioning. We could use a pillow or a towel to adapt the chair to give you more support. And to be honest, even if you do decide to invest in ergonomic equipment, the most expensive option is not always the best. So the price tag doesn't guarantee it's going to be any better or work for you. A chair that costs €1,200 might look sleek, it might have all the bells and whistles and look the part. But if it doesn't suit you, your stature, what you do, well, then it's going to be a really poor investment. The goal with ergonomics is to achieve and maintain a supported upright posture at the workstation. And this can be done on any budget. There's always adaptations we can make. And there are products from budget right the way up to the expensive to suit everybody. So if you are getting an ergonomic assessment, it doesn't mean that the recommendations, or should never mean that the recommendations will include really, really expensive products, when actually there's others that can do the job. And sometimes there's plenty of adjustments and changes we can make that don't cost anything. So that's myth number 1. Myth number 2, if I sit up perfectly straight all day, I'll avoid back pain. Now, I find so much wrong with that sentence. So if I sit up perfectly straight and the all day part, both of those are kind of problematic. There is no such thing as the perfect posture that you can hold all day. Yes, there are ideal postures that we want to try and get you in. That should be your default posture at the desk. But no posture can be maintained all day or should be maintained all day. So the supported upright posture, yes, it's the ideal. It's what we're aiming to get you in as your default position. Your body is not designed to sit or stand in the one position for hours. We're not robots. Alternating between an upright sitting position, leaning back in your chair and standing, keeps your muscles engaged and reduces discomfort. So, obviously, as I've said many times, we do want to change position every 30, 45, 60 minutes to help boost your circulation and reduce strain. The one thing I tell people is listen to your body. If you start to feel fidgety, if you start to notice areas of discomfort, this is a sign, this is your body telling you it needs to move. A small movements will make a difference. But as I often demonstrate to people when we're doing in-person assessments, sitting up perfectly straight takes a lot of work. And there is a difference between being perfectly straight and being upright. And we aim for upright and supported. Your spine is curved. It is supposed to be curved. We want to support those curves. So, no such thing as the perfect posture to hold all day. And if you sit up perfectly straight all day, you'll avoid back pain. Absolutely not. Your muscles will be fatigued, you will be sore, and you will have pain. Myth number 3, standing desks are the ultimate solution for workplace health. This is one myth I come across so much, and a lot of people I deal with, a lot of workplaces I go into, they are under the impression, they seem to think that sit-stand desks are the solution for everything from hip pain to carpal tunnel to eye strain. The reality is a standing desk or a sit-stand desk, it's a great tool to have, absolutely. But it's not going to fix everything. And it's not suitable for everyone. So standing for prolonged periods can cause issues. Like you can get sore feet, legs, fatigue, lower back pain. Sitting in one position, standing in one position for too long, particularly when it's static, is not recommended. And having a sit-stand desk does not guarantee a good posture or position. If you have the desk positioned too low or too high, you might have the desk in the right position when you stand, but it might be too high when you sit, and the screen position might be off. This is all going to increase the risk of musculoskeletal aches and pains. The key with a desk like this, with a sitting standing desk, is making sure you get the positioning right for you and the task, and making sure that you change positions frequently. So, and it can be, there's a bit of a learning to it because everybody is different. And some people struggle with certain tasks standing. Some people prefer to sit for certain tasks. So definitely, if you do have a sit-stand desk, don't dive in there and start trying to do everything in the standing position. Find what you're comfortable doing standing. For me, personally, I like to stand when I'm in my virtual meetings. I just find it works for me. I'm not using the keyboard and mouse a whole lot. And if I'm doing high focus work, I prefer to sit down. That's how I work. And when I'm sitting down, I always have my timer on the go to remind me to take my breaks. If you find standing is not for you, then that's absolutely fine. And the focus should always be on movement. So I would never encourage anyone, if you have a sit-stand desk, to stay there all day and just change from sitting to standing, sitting to standing. For your back, your hips, your shoulders, your wrists, your elbows, your eyes, you need to leave the desk. So going from sitting to standing is not a substitute for taking your micro breaks. And I do find this can sometimes be used that way. So standing desks, they're not the wonder medicine for everything, for every workplace issue. Useful to have if it's used correctly. And if it's something you want to look into more, in the show notes, there will be a link to my blog all about the correct use of sit-stand desks. And I also have a podcast episode if you want to look back and try and find it there for a little bit more detail on it and how you can make it work for you. Myth number 4, which was definitely in vogue a few years ago. I hear it less now, but the yoga ball is better than a chair. So a yoga ball or a Swiss ball or any similar active seating options can be great. Like the standing desk, it's a good tool, but it's not suitable for everyone. Not ideal for all day use. So yoga balls, if we take the yoga or the Swiss balls, They are considered an active seating option because they don't have a back. Obviously, it's just an inflated ball. So when you're sitting on it, they don't have any back support, which can cause the back after 20 minutes plus, the back can start to get a little bit fatigued. You can get a little bit of discomfort and people start to slouch. And it's very difficult with yoga balls and some of the other active seating options to get a good positioning between yourself and the desk when you're on the ball. Because the ball generally, and some of the other seating options, are generally quite fixed in height. And unless you have a desk with a good level of adjustment, it usually means that sitting on that ball means you're too low for your desk. So, a tool, absolutely, for some people. And if you were looking to strengthen your back, there's nothing wrong with using one, for 20, 30 minutes a couple of times a day. But you should default to your adjustable, supportive, traditional DSE chair that lets you sit back in an upright position and let your muscles relax a little bit. So, useful tool, but not better than a chair, just different. And if you want to know a little bit more about yoga balls and other active seating options, again, in the show notes, I'll put a link to the blog on this topic and also the podcast episode. Myth number 5, ergonomics is only for people with injuries. Absolutely not. Ergonomics is all about prevention, not just treatment. Yes, I work a lot with people who have injuries and we're trying to adapt a workplace so that they can stay in work or return to work safely, of course. But really, if we can get ahead of this, it's really, really valuable to make ergonomics a part of your workplace strategy to try and avoid a lot of what I see. Now, of course, people can have underlying medical conditions. Of course, people can get injured and ill outside of work. But definitely by being a little bit proactive, you can help prevent some of what we see. Like, absolutely, the ergonomic principles that we go by can adapt to workplaces for anybody recovering from injuries and issues. And that's a large part of what I do, but equally valuable for preventing injuries. A well designed workstation can help avoid really common problems like lower back pain, wrist strain, carpal tunnel syndrome, tension in the neck, headaches, which long term can improve your productivity and the productivity of your staff, quality of life. And ergonomics should always be thought of, in my mind, as an investment in the long term health of yourself and of your employees, not just a kind of reflective response to pain or somebody coming to you with an issue. And the last myth we'll touch on for today is that I can't afford an ergonomic setup. And this is one I've heard a few times in conversations among people, kind of outside of my work environment. And as I said earlier on, ergonomics does not mean expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive. There's just a lot of solutions out there that are low cost and free. So a reminder of a couple of them like that, the stack of books or a box to lift up your monitor, a cushion underneath your seat to increase your seated height if your chair is too low, or behind your back if you want to improve the support for your lower back. A good sturdy shoe box or some little steps or foam rollers work really well as footrests if you need one. We can be creative in how we can adapt our workplace, especially for people working at home. We have a little bit more scope there compared to an office, but you can make really small, really creative little adaptations and adjustments to make your computer setup more ergonomic without spending a fortune. It does not have to cost a lot of money to get a good workstation set up. Ergonomics is not about perfection. It's not about the latest chair or the latest keyboard. It's about practical, thoughtful changes that make a big difference over time. So by running through these 6 myths, I hope that you have a bit of a better understanding and you feel empowered to make small adjustments to your workstation that will improve your comfort, your health, and your productivity. Remember, ergonomics is for everyone, and tiny changes to your workstation can lead to big improvements in how you feel. That's it for now. As always, I will have links to the blog and the blogs I mentioned in this episode in the show notes, as well as all my social media details if anyone wants to give me a follow. And please, if you want to reach out with ideas for topics that you want me to cover in the podcast, please do. I love to hear from you. Also, if there's anything in this that you kind of thought might be useful to someone you know, please feel free to share this with someone you think might get some benefit from it. And until next time, everybody, stay well.